Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on streamlining e-commerce data analytics. I'm Priyanka, and I'm the events marketing specialist at Hivo. I will be your host and moderator for this webinar. Before we start today's session, I would like to remind you of a few things. All attendees will be on listen-only mode. You can type in your questions anytime during the webinar in the Q&A window that's available on your screen, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. So I'm sure most of you already know about Hivo, but we have a lot of new attendees today. So I will give you a quick overview. Hivo is a no-code data pipeline platform that connects and loads your data that's lying across multiple source systems into a data warehouse of your choice, such as Redshift, BigQuery, Snowflake, and others. Hivo provides pre-built integrations with over 100 different data sources and also supports advanced data transformation. Hivo is currently used by thousands of data enthusiasts who are working across multiple verticals and who are based in over 40 different countries. For more information, you can check our website, www.hivodata.com. So Ashish, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just going to briefly introduce Ashish as he's our speaker for today's session. Ashish is the site leader for eBay Bangalore's office and also founder head of the company's Global Center of Excellence for Analytics, Data Science, and variety of business data operations. He has overall experience of 25 plus years working in general management as well as senior marketing and analytics leadership roles, 15 years in various locations across the US at Microsoft, SAB Miller, Young and Rubicam Advertising, and Gallup Polls, and more recently, the past 10 years in India at eBay. Ashish has a unique perspective on how the right application of data, technology, and analytics makes a practical impact on business growth. He is one of the early pioneers in driving behavior-based analytics to drive marketing and advertising effectiveness in technology, FMCG, retail, and automotive sectors, and more recently has enabled cutting-edge innovation on agile financial performance analytics. As an organizational leader, Ashish has a strong track record of building versatile teams that operate innovatively with a strong combination of technical, analytical, and business skills to solve hard problems at global scale. He's also co-founder of the Black Book on Exponential Technologies. He has been recognized as one of the top 10 most influential leaders in analytics in India. So Ashish, I welcome you to this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, we are so honored to have you here. The stage is all yours.
Thanks a lot, Priyanka, for that very kind introduction. But yeah, I think, given the fact that now I have got a lot of experience, I think it's always a pleasure for me to share some thoughts with an audience from different backgrounds. Cool. So I think what I'll do is maybe I will switch over to my slides and just give me a second for that.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today and for joining us.
Just hold on 1 second. I need to. Okay, so you're able to see my screen.
Yeah, but it's not full screen.
Okay, all right. Let me just do one thing then. Yeah, this should work, right?
Yes, perfect. This is
okay. All right. So again, thanks everyone for taking the time on a Tuesday afternoon, late afternoon. I think what I want to do is, many of you in the audience might be curious about e-commerce. Some of you might be neutral. Some of you might already know a fair bit about e-commerce. I think I want to cater to all three audiences and talk in the next 30 minutes about my views on how people like myself who are at the center of e-commerce analytics, the way we see analytics in e-commerce, the way we see the role of data, how different things kind of connect together and so on. And what are some of the applications that we use data and analytics for, and what are some of the future trends that we are seeing, right? So I am hoping that all of you can get something out of this session. All right, so I think I'll quickly walk you through the outline for today's discussion. And what you can do, just for the benefit of each other, is as I kind of talk about these different topics from 1 to 5, maybe you can just write in the chat box something like top of mind that comes to you in terms of your thoughts. So my first slide is going to be about, all e-commerce companies are data companies, and I'll give you some perspectives on what I mean by data companies. If you want to put in the chat box your definition of data companies, feel free to. It'll be good to sort of see later on what people are saying, because each of us has a different language. Okay, so we'll first talk about why e-commerce companies are data companies. Next up, I will talk about how e-commerce, whether it is eBay or Amazon or any other even retail e-commerce, company like IKEA, which also has its own e-commerce, each of them is a network business model. And why that makes data analytics, AI, ML exciting and challenging in today's world. So we'll talk a bit about that. Further on, I will give you sort of a flavor of, okay, what are the different types of analytics and AI techniques at a high level. I'm not going to get into very specific academic definitions. But broadly, what kind of analytics and AI techniques are used in different aspects of the e-commerce business. Then we'll kind of shift gears a bit and talk briefly about why storytelling drives, and not just storytelling in general, but analytics storytelling drives e-commerce business in multiple ways in companies like eBay. Because often I think a lot of the focus is on the technical side of analytics, but I want to emphasize the importance of storytelling as well. And then very briefly, we'll look at some of the future trends in AI applications in e-commerce. And then you can ask me a few more questions. All right. So that's the thing. And please feel free to kind of, put in the chat box any thoughts that come to mind as you look at this list. And if you have questions, put them in the Q&A box. So let me start with why all e-commerce companies are data companies. So what makes a company like eBay or other e-commerce companies a data company? First of all, data is everywhere in our company. I mean, the user behavior data that is generated on our site at eBay or other companies is available at seconds level. And some data, I would say, is available at less than 1 second level, even more granular form. And that's available to people like me to study and track, right? So it's just very rich data in terms of user behavior. If you think about a consumer packaged goods company, like a company that makes soaps or a company that makes, food products or a restaurant, they will not have data at this kind of level. E-commerce companies are one of the few companies that have this much rich data. Second is, if you go beyond user behavior, more into checkout, transaction, revenue data, that is typically available at a daily level as well. And what that does for us is that, and I know, like Priyanka mentioned in the introduction, that I've done some innovations in financial analytics, and I was privileged that at eBay I had access to this kind of daily level financial checkout revenue data available for every single item in our site, and that helped us build massive trended financial databases. And that can then, once you have that, then you can do a lot of really cool analysis of the data. So that's another reason why e-commerce companies are data companies. The third one that people sometimes don't think about e-commerce companies is that we have a lot of interaction data, human machine, human to human interaction data. So we have chatbots where we have a chatbot, which is a machine interacting with our buyers or our sellers, right? So there's a lot of data being generated on a daily basis from there. Then buyers and sellers are directly speaking to each other through messages or through chats and so on. So that generates its own kind of data. Then we have a call center. Every e-commerce company has a call center where you can call in, or sometimes the call center will call you for a specific reason. And there is data being generated from those conversations. And what is the nature of that data? The interaction data has two dimensions to it, right? It can be measured in terms of how much, like, how long was the interaction, how many words are there, and so on. But it can be, that is volume, but it can also be in the form of sentiments, which is emotions that were expressed during that conversation. And as you know, artificial intelligence and machine learning now is becoming more and more sophisticated, that we are able to fairly accurately capture sentiments as well. And they can be in form of text as well as voice. And voice obviously gives you even more rich sentiment, in terms of emotion. If you're happy or if you're angry, that can be analyzed in a different way. So yeah, so that's another form of data. Then if you think about site listings, if you go to any e-commerce site, you'll see a lot of items listed on the site. And there is a lot of visual data. Items are listed, their photographs are there, items are described in certain way. In many cases, there's also videos of, like, if it's like some kind of an appliance, the video will show you how the appliance works before you, decide to purchase and so on. So there's a lot of visual data as well, which is one of the most modern forms of data that we have now started analyzing. So another reason. And then last but not the least, all our operations, all our decisions, and also how we design our website so that you can use it in an easy way, it's all based on data. And in some cases, we use the data to create a mass product for you, where you and your neighbor and your friend would all see the same thing. Or we can also create a personalized version where you will see a different one, your friend will see a different one, your neighbor will see a different one, right? So if you think about all this on a daily basis, our biggest asset is data. And that's why an e-commerce company is a data company. Okay, so that's the first thing I just wanted to sort of highlight about e-commerce. And because we are a data company, it is so important for us to streamline our data and to streamline our analytics, right? So that's a very important thing to kind of keep in mind when you're thinking of e-commerce. We cannot really afford to not have good management of our data. All right. The second point that I had made in my table of contents was e-commerce is a network business model. Now, what does that mean? Okay, so let me start with that. Buyer side and there's a seller side, right? So on most e-commerce sites, you'll have buyers and you have sellers. If you are a retailer, instead of sellers, you will have brands on the site. Now, buyers are going through a funnel, which is like a pipeline, where they first come and visit the site, which is what we call traffic. Then they go on to start seeing the items, browsing. Then they do a purchase. Then they go ahead and receive the item. And hopefully that goes smoothly. If they like the item, they like the whole experience of purchasing, they will come back and repurchase. So that is what is called a buyer funnel. Similarly, the sellers or the brands on an e-commerce platform also go through their own journey, their own funnel. And that could be starting from the point that they choose to onboard onto the marketplace, or the brand chooses to onboard onto the retailer's website. They will then place their items on the website, provide details of the items, prices, pictures, so on and so forth. Hopefully the item sells, and then the item gets shipped. In the case of a retailer, items are already in their warehouse. They ship it from the warehouse. In the case of a marketplace, the seller is shipping it, from their store or from their home, wherever they are based, to the buyer. And if they also have a good experience throughout this whole journey, they will come back and relist more items on the site. So these are two very delicate pipelines, right? Anything can happen along each of these pipelines. Things can break at different points. Friction can happen at different points. At the same time, a very good experience can happen at every part of this chain. And both these flows in our business model interact with each other, right? So buyers and sellers are interacting with each other. All of these things are happening at the same time, and buyers need to come at the right time. The item has to be there at the right time. When they purchase, the seller needs to be willing to, seller should have a price that the buyer likes. Then the shipment has to happen smoothly, reach the buyer on time. All these things are connected to each other from both sides. And there is other aspects that get involved. I talked about shipping just now, but payments is a very big thing. Sometimes you try to pay for the item, your payment fails, okay? Or it may show you that payment has gone through, but the seller says, I did not receive the payment. Things can happen, right? There are trust issues. You look at the item on the website, you buy it, but what you get when the parcel comes to you is completely different or fairly different, right? Then you say, look, I want a refund, I want to file a claim, so on. The reverse can also happen on the seller side. You may not pay on time. You may pay that, look, I'll pay in installments, but then you don't pay. You violate policies and so on. So a lot of these complexities are interacting with each other in an e-commerce business. And that's why we call it a network business, because if one thing happens on one side of the business, it has a ripple effect on other sides of the business. Now, what is the implication of that for data? Because ultimately, to understand how our business is working, we need data on all of these things. Just knowing partial data will not help us understand, because it's a network business. Everything is interconnected. So not only do we need good data on this buyer funnel, we also need on seller funnel, we also need on shipping, payments, trust, risk, etc. A lack of data on any of these will leave you as a business person in a difficult situation to make decisions, because you will have to make decisions with incomplete data. If something is going well, you won't know why it is going well. If it's not going well, we don't know why it's not going well. So as an analytics organization inside an e-commerce company, it is pretty exciting, but it's also challenging. Every day we get a question from our senior leadership, from the CEO or executive team. Okay, I'm seeing this happen in Germany, or I'm seeing this happen in China. Why is it happening? And we can't just look at one thing and give an answer. We have to look at multiple things to understand the network effect. So understanding the network effect and all the relationships helps you drive an efficient and effective e-commerce operation that can keep growing in a profitable way. Because you'd also grow profitably. If you're constantly losing money, that means you don't understand your network effects really well. So data is very critical to understand the network effects. So collect the right data, analyze it together, not in isolation, not in small pockets. That's critical. And statistics and AI ML has a huge opportunity to help you understand these network effects. It can create very powerful models for you that you can use to explain your business and also predict what may happen next. All right. So what are some of the different techniques that come into play when you are in the e-commerce business and where data and analytics plays a critical role? The very first one I would say is the planning phase in the business. So planning phase is the very critical stage when you are designing your e-commerce site. What are you going to show a visitor to the site? How it is arranged? If they come in the morning, what do they see? If they come in the afternoon, what do they see? If they come on weekend, what do they see? Is it different from what they see on weekdays? Lot of details go into designing the site. Then there is the whole marketing planning, like, what marketing channels you are going to use to reach your audience, to, make them come to the site and so on. Promotions is another aspect. Promotions can be for both buyers and sellers. Promotion could be that, okay, there is let's say a festival season going on, whether it is Diwali or a Christmas, and we are going to give a special 10% off kind of promotion to the buyers. It can be in form of a coupon, right? Another kind of promotion is to the sellers. Like, we want more sellers and brands to put their items on the site during a particular season. Let's say you're in the, clothing business, you have an e-commerce site for clothing, the kind of inventory you want on the site during summers, like, nice dresses, t-shirts, shorts, is a different kind of inventory than what you would want in the winter time when it is coats, jackets, and so on, right? So all of these things need to be planned very carefully. Then there is policies. Okay, what are the policies for buyers in terms of what they can do, what they cannot do? Similarly for sellers, what they can do, cannot do. So all of these things need to be designed, and data plays a very, very critical role in the planning phase. So the first very, very common example of applying data and analytics is A/B testing, where in the very, once you have sort of thought through some of the planning ideas, you do an A/B test where you give a certain percent of the population a certain treatment. They get to see a new version of the website. The others don't. Okay. Now, if you feel that the people who are getting the new version are behaving better, are visiting the site more, maybe buying more, then you keep increasing the number of people that you show that new treatment, and you kind of ramp up slowly like that. And that gives you an idea as to how much the changed site is going to give you in terms of revenues and profits and so on. And then once you're comfortable, you put that new site for everybody. 100% of the audience gets it. So that involves a lot of statistical analysis, and it can get pretty complex. It can be very simple, or it can be very complex, depending on the kind of A/B testing you do, the kind of business you are in, and so on and so forth. So that is a key part of planning, where you apply advanced techniques. The second thing, which is also quite common, where people don't really want to expose customers to some new idea, they feel there's a risk. They may not want the competition to see it, so on. You can do simulations. So what you do is you have a lot of data from the past. You use that data to create some models, neural network models, machine learning models, or even statistical models, which are basically if-then scenarios. That, okay, if I do this, what do I expect to happen? At like 90% confidence level and so on. So that is another way to understand how to design a new site, how to design marketing program or promotions and so on. The third aspect of planning is segmentation or clustering. So basically what you can do is you can segment your products or cluster your products into two different groups. So how that helps you is, let's say a person is buying one item. Then what you can do is you can start showing them ads for the other items that are closely related to this item. So you'll get that information from the clustering, and you can apply that technique to do more of the advertising on the site or following up with people on email. Okay, you recently purchased this item. Would you also like to purchase this item? So all of that kind of work, planning work, can be done through clustering analysis, which again can be based on statistical analysis or machine learning. Segmentation is when you create groups of people. Okay, this group of people, I'm going to show this version of the website. That group, I'm going to show another version of the website, and because you have identified that this group behaves similarly, that group behaves similarly to each other, and so on. So there's a lot of interesting planning work that happens in e-commerce, and you need to make sure that you're using the right techniques, you're streamlining all the data that you use for your analysis and so on. The second big stage is operations phase, where you're running your processes and you want to make sure that all the money you're spending or the investments you're making are working for you. So you use dashboards and metrics to track on a daily, weekly basis how your business is doing. Many of you might be familiar. I think dashboards are one of the most common form of analytics in most companies. Second thing you can do is you can target buyers or sellers. If you want to run a coupon, you may identify a list of buyers who you think are the best suitable for the coupon, and you send the invitation for the coupon only to those buyers. Similarly, you can target sellers. Certain sellers will get certain benefits to list their items on the site. So a lot of that is based on statistics and modeling as well. Third one, I think I've mentioned here, is risk, fraud, trust actions. When you need to take some actions on either buyers or sellers who are doing things that violate the policy, right? So you either charge them a fee if they're doing something they should not be doing, like basically a fine, or you reduce their ability to either buy or sell on the site, or in extreme cases, you just terminate their account on the site, right? If it's in the interest of the business as well as the ecosystem. So this is the operations phase where we use a lot of data, and what we need is data that's available quickly and can be put into action very, very fast. The time is of the essence in the operations phase. The third phase, once you have done the planning, you have done your operations, third phase where in e-commerce it's very critical to use data and analytics is measurement. The measurement is the phase where, okay, you have run your campaign, you have run your promotion. Now you want to know, okay, at the end of the promotion, how did it do? Okay, if you've spent money on marketing, you try to get new buyers to join your e-commerce platform. How did it do? Because that kind of information then you can use for internal reporting. Your CEO might want to know what's going on, how the money is being used. Or many times, even in external reporting, if you're a public company and you have to report every quarter to investors, you want to tell them that, look, we did this big marketing program, we spent so many $1 million, and we got a lot of benefit. Investors are happy when they see that, look, the company is using its money well, whatever the company is doing is working. So measurement phase is very critical, very precise. Typically like in an organization like mine, I will generally ask some of the most experienced people to take care of the measurement part, because accuracy is very, very critical. And what you basically do in the measurement phase is you are separating what we call signal from the noise. There's a lot of data in e-commerce, right? A lot of numbers are going up and down and so on. But are all of them important to look at, or only some of them? The ones which are important to look at are the signals, and everything else is noise. So not focus on the noise, focus on signal. And the second thing that we do in measurement is also to do attribution or causal analysis, which is, okay, in the last 3 months, we did 5 different things and the business improved. How much did each of those 5 things contribute? And that becomes very important, because then you can decide, okay, in the next quarter, how much money I should spend on each of those things. You want to spend more money on things that are working better. You have done marketing, you have done something with the product website, you have done something with seller promotions, which was delivering the business more. So we do a lot of analysis in this whole network business to understand which part of the business is contributing to growth or maybe contributing to decline. So very, very critical. All of these three are important, but you have to kind of streamline your process in such a way that you're doing each of the 3 at the right time and put in the right effort. The next one, I think, as I'm mentioning, is analytics storytelling, which is really about, you spend all this money on managing your data. You have a staff that is analyzing the data, doing the analytics, statisticians, machine learning engineers. They have done their work. Now, what is the final benefit of this work? That's where this comes in. The first thing in e-commerce companies is that we are very, very focused on decisions and actions. So e-commerce companies tend to be very, very practical organizations. We will always give priority to a practical solution than something which looks theoretically beautiful, but may not be practical. So, even if, let's say, you are a PhD data scientist or a statistician and you're working in an e-commerce company, what you have to adjust to is the fact that, okay, you may be able to build a beautiful model that you can maybe, publish as a paper, in a conference. But if it's not solving the e-commerce problem, then it's not going to get used. We're always trying to focus on the practical aspect of data than the theoretical aspect of data. The second point here is the 80-20 rule, which is, okay, there is so much data, amazing different kinds of data, that you can keep analyzing and analyzing and analyzing and not make any decision. Okay, there's no end to how much you can analyze that data. But we in e-commerce companies are always focused on, okay, how much analysis is sufficient to make a reasonably good decision? So both in terms of how much time to spend doing analysis, we apply the 80-20 rule that we don't need to go all the way to 100%. Let's stop analysis now. We have done enough. Second is precision. Okay, we have found some kind of an answer, a solution. Even if it's not 100%, if it's 80%, and it gives the decision makers good confidence, go with it. Because both time and precision, if you spend too much time on it, you lose the opportunity to do better than your competitor or to gain market share, or you lose customers and so on and so forth. So we apply 80-20 rules quite a bit. Third one is test and learn. E-commerce is a very fast moving business. So it's always about keep testing things. It's okay if the test fails. It's okay if you're wrong. Keep learning from your past actions and keep moving forward. Very important to keep that forward momentum and not get stuck. And last point is very, very critical. And increasingly in today's world, the e-commerce companies which are doing better than others do very well on this one. Democratization of analytics, which is give analytics in form of tools to every employee. Your delivery person who is coming to the house to deliver the product, if they have good tools, they will do better in their delivery job. The finance person, you give them good tools, they will plan the finances of the e-commerce company better, right? The marketing person, the salesperson, human resource, everywhere, what we see is that the more tools we give in this fast-moving business to each person, not just like a central department, but to every department, the better it is in our business. Because we are ultimately a data company and everybody needs data tools. Yeah. Okay. And then finally, the last slide. What are some of the future trends in e-commerce? I think the first one I would say, and which is very hot right now, and eBay as well as other companies are trying to really understand this area, is voice, image, and video analytics. Because sites, I think, are showing more and more rich images of products, videos of products. We have a lot more voice data now available to us through our customer interactions. We haven't yet fully figured out what's the best way to analyze it and drive value out of it, right? So that is an area where a lot of work is currently going on. And I would say in the future as well, we will see a lot of innovation in both data platforms as well as analytics applications in this area. Second one, I would say, is curated shopping. I talked about the fact that the data can enable you to create mass experiences or even personal experiences. But truly personal experience is still a challenge. Not many companies have perfected that. Like you as the most unique person, will you get a very different experience compared to everybody else? Doesn't happen all the time, right? So in the future, as AI becomes more and more powerful and people are able to write better and better algorithms, you will see better and better one-to-one personalization on e-commerce sites using this data. Third one is, I think, very interesting too, consumer privacy and empowerment. Consumers are also becoming more and more picky about what data they want to share. Right now, consumers may feel that e-commerce companies are not giving them the full control of the privacy. But in future, there will be industry level tools available, platforms available, where consumers can clearly see what data that they're sharing is being used by companies. They can select which data they want to share, they don't want to share. Because obviously, if you want personalization, you may need to share some data. So it's a give and take. Like you want some personalization, then you have to share some data. You don't want personalization, you don't have to share the data. So all of those policies will get formed, and data will play a key role in deciding what people decide to choose. Next point is data quality. I think AI/ML is being used and already being used and will be used even more in the future to improve quality of data. So a lot of the data that companies have, even we have on our shipping, or even competitors and so on, is not very good data. And that quality will improve in the future, and that will help e-commerce companies give even better experiences to their customers. And finally, what is called risk reduction without consumer friction. This is also a hot area in e-commerce right now, because many times, if in fintech as well, actually, like an e-commerce company may not approve a certain buyer or seller to do business on their platform because they're considered risky. Many times, perfectly good consumers are treated as risky because the models are not really that strong yet. But as AI ML improves, there'll be very good models that will be able to, make sure that you don't get rejected from the e-commerce platform just because of some error in the model. They will be able to figure out who is a really risky customer versus a not risky customer. So that's going to reduce friction for people, and also improve, reduce risk. Like, so for example, if, in future, people may be able to buy installments more easily because there will be better risk models that will tell the seller or the brand that don't worry, this person will pay in installments. This person will not default. Right now, many companies don't want to do installments because they don't have enough trust that the customer might do it. So like that, there's a lot of things to come in the future. Stay tuned. E-commerce is not going anywhere. It's going to keep growing and going to be very data and analytics driven in the future. And the focus is going to be on doing the right things for both buyers and sellers using data and analytics. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ashish. That was a very, very interesting presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the time for the Q&A round. I'm sure some of you have some great questions. Any sort of questions that you have? You can type them out in the chat window or in the Q&A window. So maybe, Ashish, we could give it maybe 10 seconds and 10 to 15 seconds.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Please feel free to ask any question that you would have.
Yeah, if something was not clear, I would love to address any clarification as well.
Great. We have a few questions that have come. What are some of the most popular analytics solutions or platforms being used for e-commerce analytics?
So, well, I am not, I think it's probably not suitable for me to kind of promote any particular brand, but I think let me just give you one idea as to where the trends are going. So over the last many years, most e-commerce companies were using, large licensed database, relational database type solutions. Then in the last 10 years, I'm seeing there is a movement going in the other direction, which is completely open source tools that are coming. I'm not going to name any names just for the sake of it, just to kind of keep it polite for my brand partners or others. But where I think e-commerce companies are seeing more value nowadays is because in completely open source type analytic solutions, you don't get very good customer support. So if I'm using a product or a package and I run into some problems, it's difficult for me to find a solution. They don't have very good training, so it becomes hard for someone like me to train my teams to use that analytics solution. Okay. So on one end, you have these, very long-term, licensed solutions which give you training and so on, but those can be very expensive. On the other side are completely open source. They're very inexpensive, but then they don't come with a lot of support. So there are new companies coming up. Even companies like eBay are talking to some of these companies, which are very much cloud-based, but at the same time, they give you a combined mixture of the benefits of an open source type, less expensive solution, but also a good support, technical support, training support, and so on and so forth. So that's where the trend is going right now. The other area where products are quite hot right now is data visualization, which is how to help you create interesting charts, and various ways to tell the story using figures and charts. And the innovation that is going on there is using natural language processing. So you can literally talk to the tool and say, okay, can you please run me a report for customers aged 18 to 35 for UK? and just you speak that, and it can actually start generating a report by processing your voice data, or you can even type it and do that. So if you think about the traditional forms of tools, starting from Excel onwards, you have to be very specifically telling, okay, what do you want? Now you can just tell, okay, can I have this? And it will generate a solution for you, a chart or a figure or something. Okay.
Okay.
So next, okay, there's a question here from Saurabh. All the data is separated in 10 different places. Marketing data is with Google, sessions with analytics. Okay. How do you go about centralizing data from different sources, a custom solution that you plug into a tool, or are there some standard tools that can help you centralize reporting? Yeah, I think it's a very good question. So what I'm seeing as a trend here is there is no need to have every single thing put into one single warehouse. I think we understand that even within a company, a lot of different types of data cannot be shared between departments. So some data has to sit in a certain department or in a separate location, and another data in another location. I think that's one of the learnings that's coming in the last 10 years. And yes, companies are building data lakes and so on, but many times you run into these hurdles. So what the focus is on more these days is that's based on typically what kind of work a department does. What is the data cube or data mart that they need? And what companies are doing is that, okay, let's say from your example, you need certain things from the marketing data set. You figure out which data you need from there. You need something from session data or sales data. What do you need from there? And then you can create a curated data mart for yourself, or data cube, which you can then maintain in the cloud and keep refreshing and so on. There is no need for everyone to hit a giant data lake. Each department can use their own data mart, a mini data mart that is relevant for their purposes. And yeah, I mean, there are definitely different kinds of tools that you can use to pull the data out. I mean, obviously SQL is a very standard tool, but now there are a lot of nice applications that sit on top of SQL. So even somebody who doesn't know how to write SQL can write a very intuitive query and then it gets translated into a SQL query, and then the data can be pulled. So the whole idea is to make data access easy for everyone. You don't have to be a data engineer or an analytics or data scientist person to be able to access data.
Okay. Audience, we still have 2 more minutes left. So if any of you would have any more questions, by the way, thanks to the audience for being, for all these questions that you're giving us.
Yeah.
You're making it a very interactive session.
Is there anything else in the chat that I missed, or?
No.
Oh, there's some other, they have questions about, okay, for you maybe.
Yeah, the recording of the presentation will be shared with all of you. But do you have any other questions? Yeah, there's one more from Saurabh.
Okay.
So I'll read it out so everybody will be able to hear the question. For monthly or weekly reviews, etc., is it better to have standardized reports so the numbers can be explained to management easily? This would be better done if there's a centralized dashboard.
Yes, absolutely. That's extremely prevalent in all organizations, that if you have a very regular review, you create a standardized dashboard. One thing though that I would advise is that from my experience, you need to create a dashboard that is a little bit agile and flexible. Because what happens with monthly and weekly reviews, especially when you're doing to senior management, many times they will keep on asking for some new metrics or new way of looking at the metrics. So from my experience, it's always good to be able to work with tools that can let you make changes quickly. If you go with a very traditional old-fashioned software engineering approach, if you get feedback from your user that, look, I want to change metrics in the dashboard, your data engineering team may take up to 2 weeks to make the changes. And that is not a good experience for the end users. So try to find reporting solutions that are agile and can help you make the changes quickly. Okay.
All right. Looks like it's already 5:45. But if anybody has one last question, we can take that. Maybe we'd give it maybe 5 or 6 more seconds for the question. Yeah, I think that's about it. So thanks a lot, Ashish. This was, a really insightful presentation. There's so much to learn from, and I'm sure the audience also learned, a lot from this session. Thank you so much for participating as a speaker.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. And I think I just saw one more question come in.
Okay, sure.
I'll just quickly answer that. So yeah, can promos and marketing efforts be carried over to offline channels and stores? Yes, so companies which are of omni-channel, which have both a physical store and also e-commerce store, they definitely work on this. I think the key there is to have a single unique customer ID that you can use to identify the same person in the physical store and in the online store. If you don't have that, it becomes very difficult to link those two efforts. So companies which are able to do that can do it well. Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, for all the questions again, and all of you have a great week ahead and all the best in your careers. Yeah. Thanks, Priyanka, for your help.
Thank you, Ashish.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today for this webinar. You've been a great audience today, and we do have a lot of virtual events coming up. Please follow us on social media, and I will definitely send you an invitation for the next one. I look forward to your attendance. Also, you can try Hivo for free. You just need to go to www.hivodata.com. You have a free trial. So if you want to get all your data from different sources and put them into a warehouse, this is one of the best tools you can explore and you can use for free for a certain period of time. So do check out Hivo and have a great evening. See you next time.